everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of learning how to knit. Today I'm going to show you how to do cables, which seem really scary. I myself was terrified of trying them, and it was one of these things that actually was so much simpler than I thought it was. So I hope that this might help some of you out who are a little bit nervous about trying something new. We are going to be doing a 3 cable pattern. But first I'm going to show you some of the tools that you can use when you're knitting cables. So the most common one I feel like is this little guy, kind of U-shaped. You can use this, you could use something like this, or my personal favorite, this is actually kind of a tool that I would recommend if you are only interested in knitting. If you remember last video, I showed you how to pick up drop stitches using a crochet hook. So this is actually what I typically use when I am doing cables. The hook kind of keeps them from sliding off. This one here is probably the one that you will see used most often. So I'll show you how I use both of them. For a 3 cable pattern, you're going to actually be doing it across 6 stitches. So if you remember, we cast on 18 stitches the last time. So what we're going to do is we're going to knit the first 6 stitches because we're on a knit side, right? So we're going to knit our first 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're now going to stop. So when you're doing cables, there is cabling to the back and cabling to the front. Some patterns will tell you which direction to go, some won't. A lot of the time, all that really matters is that you are consistent with how you are doing it. So we are going to be cabling to the back. It is the way that I typically do my cables. We've done 6 stitches, and over the next 6 stitches, we are going to do our cable. Y'all, when I tell you that it seems scary, but it's not, are you ready? This is how you cable. So we're doing a 3 cable, right? We're gonna take 1, 2, 3 stitches off of our left needle. So we haven't stitched them yet. We're now going to move those stitches to the back. So we're going to pull our working yarn in front of them, and they're just going to sit back there. If you look, our working yarn is still all the way over here, and we're going to now ignore those 3 stitches. And we're now going to knit the next 3 stitches. So you're going to have those 3 stitches that you're ignoring all the way to the back. You're going to have your working yarn in between, and you are now going to just knit the next 3 stitches like you normally would. So 1, 2, 3. And we're now going to grab this little tool that has our 3 stitches on it, and we are going to move our working yarn behind, and we are now going to knit these 3 stitches. Okay, so we ignored them and now we're going to knit them. It is important to know that this is going to be kind of snug. Even if your tension is perfect, this will be a little snug because you're basically pulling the stitches to a different area. But you're now going to knit these 3 stitches off of this cable needle. 2, 3. Sorry, I'm trying not to have my hook or my needle slide all around. All right. So we're done with that now. And if you look, it looks kind of messy, and that's okay. You're not really going to see it right here. What we're going to do now is we're going to knit the next 6 stitches the way that we typically do. And there we go. You can see here how the fabric of your knitting is kind of like, there's a little almost like a pocket, and that is because you have just knit your first cable. Believe it or not, it's so simple. You're just going to knit and purl like usual for the next 7 rows. So we're now going to turn our work and we're just going to purl the whole way across, just like we have been. We're not going to worry at all about cables. Now here is where the cable is, and again, it's a little bit more snug, and you're just going to do your best to try and work your tension the way that you normally do. It will help relax the fabric a little bit. Like I said, cables are going to twist your fabric. The tension will be a little bit different in certain areas. That's okay. I'm going to keep track of how many rows I do here. That was 1. I need to do 7 rows before my next cable. So that was row 1. So I'm just going to kind of speed through. We're just going to knit and purl back and forth just like normal. Now we're purling this row, and now we're knitting again. This is row 4. This is number 6. Okay, and one more before we do our next cable. You can kind of start to see how a cable shape might be forming here. And we will, like I said, on the next knit row, we'll do another cable. So we've now done 7 rows since our first cabled row. And we are now ready to do our next cabled row. If you do cabled rows too frequently, your fabric will kind of pucker and it will warp a little bit. So it's kind of one of these things that you can play around with. There are definitely like, patterns out there that explain, when to do cables and things like that. If you're just kind of free forming and figuring it out as you go, if your fabric starts to pucker too much, then you need to do more regular rows of knits and purls in between your cables. But we are now ready to do another cable row. I'm going to use this little tool this time just to show you the difference. And we're going to go step by step again. So remember, this is 18 stitches and we're doing the cable across 6 stitches. So we're going to knit our first 6. We are now going to cable with our next 6 stitches. We're going to now just simply slide these off. We're not going to knit into them. We're not doing anything. We're just sliding the next 3 stitches off of our needle. So you see we haven't worked them. Our working yarn is still over here. So remember now we're going to move it to the back. So we're taking these 3 stitches and we're pulling our working yarn in front. And we're now going to knit the next 3 stitches, ignoring the 3 that are back here. So we're going to knit 1, 2, and 3. One of the other things that some people do is instead of knitting off of this tool, you could actually slide the stitches back onto your left-hand needle and knit them that way. But I feel like that can be a little bit confusing sometimes because you don't want to accidentally slide them the wrong way. So if you're a beginner, I recommend not doing that just yet. We're now going to pull these 3 stitches back to the front and we're now going to just knit right off of this little cable tool. Put our cable needle down, we're done with it. We're going to pull our working yarn to the back, pick up the left-hand needle, which has the 6 stitches left to go, and we're going to knit those. 5 and 6. And there you have it. See how the cable is starting to form? How that twist, that repeating twist is starting to appear? There are also ways of doing your cables so that they stand out a little bit more, and again, that's just a mix of the knits and the purls. I just wanted to make it as easy and as simple and as straightforward as possible the first time that you try it. If you are interested in seeing a slightly more complex version, actually let me go grab one. Those of you who are around for the dastardly sweater that I knit for James, here's an example of how the cables were done in that sweater. So you can kind of see how they stand out a little bit more, and that's because these stitches here are knit and then the ones before the cable were purled, so that way the knit cables kind of pop out a little bit. I can go ahead and make like a short little video showing how to do that, because again, it's just a difference of the knits and the purls, which we've already practiced. But let me go ahead. We'll do a few rows here just to show you how the pattern develops. But y'all, that is literally all you do for cables. It's just sliding some stitches off of your needle and then knitting out of order, basically. It was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I was shocked. Okay. You see how we are now starting to have very similar to this one. It doesn't stand out as much, but it's that same kind of shape. So there you can see the cable twist once again starting to form. And so if you continue to repeat this, you would get something similar to this. And you can just keep going for however long you want. Just adding 7 rows in between when you do the cables. You always want to cable from the same sides, like I said, the knit side here. And again, you want to always make sure that you move those 3 stitches to the back if that's what you're doing, or to the front if that's what you're doing. You want to go ahead and keep that consistent every time. I'm now going to go ahead and show you how to cast off. Basically, you would just keep doing this until the item that you're making is as long as you would like it to be, or the size that you want if you're just making like a scarf or something, and then you would cast off. So let me show you how you do that, and then I will make a little video later that just shows how to do cable stitches with knits and purls mixed in, so that your cables pop out a little bit more, because right now they kind of blend in a little bit, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. I just want to show you all how to do all the things. With knitting, when you cast off, you're going to basically be using 2 stitches at a time to finish off the row. It's kind of hard to describe, but let me just show you, okay? That'll be easier than trying to explain. So you're going to work your first stitch like you typically would and knit, and then you're going to work the second stitch, same thing. Now, instead of knitting your third stitch, what you're going to do is you're going to pull this first stitch that you knit over top of the second one, and basically you're casting it off. You won't be working into it anymore. If I'm being honest, casting off can be kind of tricky. There are people who will use the left hand needle to kind of pull that first stitch over the second stitch. So I'll show you again. You can use this left needle to kind of go into the first one and just pull it over the top. Again, you could knit the next one and keep doing it that way. But let me show you a little trick that makes casting off so much easier. Remember those crochet hooks that I said are really handy for knitters to have, even if you're never going to actually crochet? Well, you could also put that loop on your hook, and then when you go to knit, just like you were before, now you just pull it through. It's so much easier. So you would use your crochet hook kind of like a knitting needle. So you would go from the front to the back, just like when you knit, and pull the yarn through. Okay, cast that off of the left one, and now just pull that yarn right through that loop. It's the exact same thing that you are doing here. If you look, right, it's the exact same thing, because now we're just going to pull this one over the top of that one, but it's without having to be fiddly with that other needle and worrying about stitches falling off, because the hook kind of helps with that. So here, I'll show you again. You can see how we're casting off, all right? So with the crochet hook, just like we're knitting, from the front to the back, grab that yarn, pull it through, take it off since we just knit that stitch, and now just pull that through. This is the easiest method I've ever found to casting off knitting stitches. It is so much easier than trying to use the two knitting needles, and I wish that I would have learned it much sooner. But trust me when I tell you that this method is going to be much less of a headache and give you the same result. Like, you can't tell looking at this which one was knit and which one I used the crochet hook on. I think that this will be a huge time saver and just headache reducer for you. Yarn over, and we're going to pull through and pull that loop right off, and now just pull that other loop through. You don't want to make this too tight because you want there to be some stretch, so make sure that you're not pulling this loop really tight when you're doing it. You want everything to be kind of relaxed. We're going to pull that yarn through, okay, and then pull through. So I'll show you again one more time with the knitting needle to show you that it's exactly the same thing. I'm going front to back, yarning over, pulling through, pulling it off of that left knitting needle, but now I have to do this extra step of getting that first loop over the second one without doing what I just did, which was dropping that stitch. It can be really fiddly, even for someone who's been knitting for a long time. So again, here's how I do it with the crochet hook, right? So same exact motion, just with a different tool, and I don't end up dropping those stitches. It's just so much easier. So pull it off, pull it through, knit your stitch off, pull it through. Now this does also work if you were to do it purl ways. You would just have your yarn to the front and move your crochet hook the same direction that you would move it if it was a knitting needle in the purl, and then pull it off that way. Like, it's the exact same. I'll do that though because we're knitting. So it works either direction, which is fabulous. You just want to make sure that you're using your crochet hook as if it was a knitting needle instead of a crochet hook. Okay, last one. We've made it to the last stitch, and there's no more stitches to cast off. So what we're going to do here is we'll grab our scissor and just cut a length of yarn, and then we'll yarn over and pull through that last loop. And that will finish off your knitted work. And look at that, you've made a nice little square of knits and purls and cables. It was so easy, right? Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful and that you might have learned something new. I know learning how to cast off with a crochet hook was just a game changer for me. So I hope that this was helpful. Like I said, I'll go ahead and I'll do a very quick little video that just shows this exact same pattern, but doing it with knits and purls so that your cable stitch stands out a little bit more. So that one will be much shorter because I'm not going to go through all of those same like setup steps. I'm going to assume that you've seen this video first. But thank you so much for watching. I hope that made cables a little bit less scary for you. I know that once I learned how to do them, I was like, wow, I can't believe that this was so scary to me for so long. It was actually so simple. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any questions or to let me know what you would like to see next time that we do a tutorial video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.